we're always thinking through scenarios of how can we make Copilot better. You know, every time someone says to me, is generative AI going to take my job? The answer is no. Someone who knows how to use generative AI is going to take your job. From an infrastructure standpoint, that's one thing. But from a user standpoint, okay, if I'm giving you my data, what are you doing with it, right?
Welcome back to Microsoft Dev Radio. My name is Omar, and of course, I'm bringing to you more special guests. I'm going to go ahead and let her introduce herself today.
Hi, so my name is Paulina Hall. I've been working under MSAI and Experience in Devices for the last 3 years. I've been a software engineer for almost 15 years. And today I work on Copilot. So I work on Copilot experiences that will eventually become part of the unified Copilot experience across all of our products.
Okay. All right. Copilot is a major thing that we talk about here on this channel. So stay tuned to hear more about what Copilot can do in the future. Okay, so can you tell me more about your background, you know, schooling, certifications, how you got here, and why Microsoft?
That's always an interesting question. Should I give you like the real down low answer, or should I give you like
keep it real here. Keep it real.
So I went to Fort Valley State University. I'm an HBCU baby.
Okay.
I did math and computer science. But if you want to go like all the way back to the beginning, I made my first website when I was in like the 5th grade for like this little gifted program, and they had this STEM technology fair, and I won a little trophy, and I was all excited and stuff.
Okay.
And so 6th grade, I told one of my friends, I was like, I want to be a computer engineer when I grow up. And they were like, do you even know what a computer engineer does? And I was like, nope. But I'm going to find out.
There we go.
And ever since then, like, I've always just like gravitated toward computers, anything like taking things apart. Like when I was a kid, I used to take calculators apart. I took laptops apart. I took multiple full desktops apart. And I asked my mom one time if she would let me take a TV apart, and she kept telling me no. And I was really, really upset. And so, like, as I got older, like, I just gravitated into websites. And so I remember, like, this girl made this blog one time, and I thought it was just the coolest thing in the world. And this was kind of like the middle end of the MySpace era, like Facebook era. And so she made this blog, and, like, I just dug it apart. I'm like, what is this? And it turns out it was WordPress.
Oh, wow.
And from that on, that day, I was 16, I was addicted to WordPress.
You know what's crazy? I did a project in WordPress recently. I didn't know it was
deep.
WordPress
no,
is
like
deep.
WordPress is deep.
WordPress
I've
deep.
been in WordPress since like the early days.
Okay.
The early days.
Before the plugins and all this other stuff.
Plugins were coming around right about that time.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I remember when WP Engine was invented, like when the whole company started. So yeah, that dates me just a little bit. So I did like WordPress, like freelancing, you know?
Okay.
So I would work for like little small businesses and stuff, and that got me through college, and I worked for like lawyers. And I didn't get my first real job until 3 months out of college. I went in for what I thought was an internship, and I walked out, and the guy was like, I think you're too good for an internship. I'm just going to give you a full-time job. I'm like, say what? Say less? Okay. So I was at Geico, and I was building out billing APIs. I was literally processing credit cards.
Okay.
And then from there, I don't know, it was just kind of a journey. I've been a federal contractor. I've worked for manufacturing companies. I've worked for utility companies. And finally, a recruiter reached out to me one day and was like, don't you want to interview for Microsoft? And in my head, I'm like, it was always one of those dreams that you never really thought would really happen. Like, I want to work for Microsoft one day. And so when this recruiter reached out to me, like, there had been a bunch of layoffs at the company that I was at. And I was like, you just need to go ahead and jump on this. Mm-hmm. And so I did. And it took about 6 months. And June of 2021 was when I started here at Microsoft.
Okay. Well, first of all, congratulations. I think a lot of people looking to get into tech, especially like the younger people, have a similar background, curious about technology at an early age. Mm-hmm. And then they kind of just stumble their way forward and stumble their way up into something bigger and better. So that's good to hear that, you know, the work that somebody younger is doing can ultimately lead to the dream.
Like the dream.
The dream.
Living the dream.
So you mentioned Fort Valley State, and I actually met you, even though you don't remember me. I met you at Microsoft's HBCU Day, a day where Microsoft, you know, kind of highlights the HBCUs. And living in Atlanta, living in Georgia, we are a hotbed for a lot of HBCUs. I don't think HBCUs, you know, maybe historically, get the visibility from companies like this. So can you talk about HBCU Day at Microsoft? Because that was a great experience for me when I met you.
HBCU Day is really one of those golden opportunities to get the type of kids and the type of students that we want to be in the Microsoft pipeline. Because you have to keep in mind, Microsoft really emphasizes hiring university students because they can teach them everything they know.
Right.
And HBCUs need to be in that pipeline. That's how we get our students, our kids in the door so that they can grow into the Microsoft environment and their career and have their career start here. So the more kids that we can have their career start here, the better chance that we have at having those leaders that look like us in this field.
And I think something that was interesting from that day that I took away, of course, we're in Atlanta. Spelman, Morehouse, Clark, big name universities in the HBCU space, you know, kind of, you know, the go-tos, part of the go-to collective. I saw people from Albany State. I saw people from your alma mater, Fort Valley State, that took the opportunity to drive, you know.
We had people driving all the way from Alabama that day.
Right, to come here. And that's something that definitely needs to be talked about. Because from my experience, it was great to see that, you know, Microsoft specifically was reaching outside of the metro area and then, you know, wrapping their arms around schools that don't necessarily see that.
Right. Yeah, we invited students from University of West Georgia, from UGA. When we have events like that, you know, our goal always is to target the closest to home, obviously.
Right.
Morehouse, Clark, Atlanta, Spelman. But we don't forget that there's so many people who are right within our kind of tri-state area or even our, you know, Tennessee, North South Carolina, Alabama, like Florida, all these states right here. We're one of the biggest, if not the only biggest company in this entire area, you know? And so there's Google down the street, there's companies out in the Research Triangle, and there's stuff out in Florida, but we are the biggest company in this area. And so to see those type of opportunities and to really be able to see what an enterprise of our size looks like, this may be the only place that they can see that in this entire region. And when you think about it that way, people will come far and wide when you give them the opportunity to see it.
Yeah. I thought to myself, if I was a college student with the car that I had, first of all, I wouldn't have made it. But you know, it's good that they got there. My Civic that I had to put antifreeze in every 4 miles wouldn't have made it though. I'm telling you, wouldn't have had enough money for that.
I don't know what kid didn't have a Civic as a first car. Literally, a Civic was my first car.
2 doors, the Green Goblin.
Listen, who didn't have a Civic as a first car?
Everybody did. So I want to go back into your position here at Microsoft. Can you tell us more about your day-to-day and if you're on a team and what that team looks like?
Yeah, so what's really cool about my core team is that we all work on really, really different areas kind of our infrastructure. So we've got people who may be working on event-based type infrastructure, or people who may be working on APIs, or people who may be working on like experimenting with our data scientists. And so it's always interesting when we get a chance to come together and kind of show each other our work, because we learn so much from each other just within our core team. And then when you start to kind of navigate like outside of our team, MSAI, which by the way means Microsoft Search Assistance and Intelligence, MSAI is one of the most international divisions that we have in our company, right? And so as soon as you step outside of our team, you're in like 10, 15 different countries. Even on my team, we've got a guy in, where is he? He's in Brazil, or Yeah, he's in Brazil. No, he's in Colombia. I work with people in Brazil. I work with people in Colombia. I work with people in Kenya, Norway, China. Like the list goes on and on of the number of countries that we work with. We've got people in Canada, Mexico. We did a really big Latin America push a couple of years ago. And so like when you look at like outside of our team, it's so incredible to see not only the diversity of talent and skill of all the different people that we work with, but just where everyone is located, and yet we're all working toward this same single common goal. So, obviously we're always trying to figure out, we're always thinking through scenarios of how can we make Copilot better, right? And so usually that looks like, okay, how can we give our customers a better user experience? How can we enable them to use Copilot in a more efficient way? And so whether that's like suggesting better prompts or giving them more information to help them follow up on things like meetings or events that they recently attended or documents that they may need to read. We're always trying to figure out like how do we give customers a better experience in Copilot. So we're going through design sessions and looking at, okay, what's the easiest thing or the most efficient like experience that we can show them or give them, and then how do we build that and implement it in a way that's fast and that's reliable and that's scalable. And so everything we do, we test it ourselves, right? So we are always our user zero. And so we're testing our own stuff, we're experimenting on our own products, and then we're writing code and we're, trying to implement those new features as we figure out what we're trying to do. So there's so many moving parts, because then on top of that, when we have a production facing product, we've got to support it. So I've done everything from live site support to assisting with experimentation, writing out code for new features, writing up design docs. We always have to help with both internal and external documentation. So there's always things to do. There's always plenty of work to be done.
See, I think that something that you highlighted, which is actually very, very important, is the fact that you and your team members are always continuously working, continuously growing, and continuously building on the things that Copilot can do, AI can do, automation, Azure. Everybody's continuously working on what these things can do. And the reason why it's important to highlight that, from my perspective, is because there's this concern that may be bubbling and growing from, soon to be or looking to be developers, that, AI is here to replace. Automation is here to change things. I can already see it on your face. But as you're saying here, that's not the case.
No, not at all. Say, I just said this morning. I was telling you that I had a speech at a conference this morning about generative AI. And I always open my speeches with telling people, every time someone says to me, is generative AI going to take my job? The answer is no. Someone who knows how to use generative AI is going to take your job. And so with that being said, as an engineer, learning LLMs and GPT and how generative AI works and how it can be integrated and implemented, those are the things that are going to make the next generation of engineers relevant. And those are the things that are going to get people in the door when they're trying to get a job. If you tell me that you understand RAG, what is a retrieval augmented generation? What is a large language model? What is CRAG? What is graph RAG? If you can tell me what those things are, how you implement those, how do you make sure that those are scalable and that they're feasible in terms of a product, then I'm going to hire you. I'm always going to need engineers who build on top of the actual product.
Right.
Because the product, regardless of what anybody tells you, can't build itself.
Right.
So so the product can't build itself, right? It might be able to build other things, but it can't build itself.
Okay.
Someone still has to build the product. And so think of it this way. Here's an analogy that I like to use. There once was assembly lines, right? Where there were people putting cars together by hand, screwing stuff in, right? And then there were, the robots, where they come in, they feed in the parts, and it would kind of do its own thing. And then there was the fully autonomous robots, where the robots handle the whole process from end to end. But there's still people in the building as this is happening. So what are those people doing? They're programming the robot. They're making sure the robots are clean. They're making sure that they stay safe. They're making sure that they work effectively. They're making sure that they're producing quality products. They're inspecting the products. Those people didn't lose their jobs. They just got new jobs. They're
Right.
doing new things, and they're doing things that require more skill than them just putting the car together.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I thought. That's what we tell people here on the channel. But it's good to hear that it's hammered home from somebody that's actually working day to day with the product that can see what's going on. I do want to go down the line of Copilot because we talk about that a lot on this channel as well.
Mm-hmm.
Copilot is interesting. I think that's like a very
interesting is an understatement.
Yeah. I think it's an understatement, and especially because we highlighted on Build Day the new things that are coming to Azure through Copilot, the AI Studio. It's going to change the game. What are your thoughts on what Copilot can do in the next 5 to 10 years?
So today, Copilot can help you write code, right?
Okay.
But what if I could say, okay, Copilot, I need an app that does XYZ, and it produces an app that does XYZ to its fullest capabilities. Does that replace the engineer?
No.
Because who's going to make sure that app gets deployed on the right infrastructure? Who's going to support it in production? Who's going to talk to the customers? Who's going to talk to the business owners, the product managers? Who's going to be making sure that those features work well, that they've been tested, that they've been integrated with other applications? How, even if I tell Copilot to build something, anything, say I wanted to build me a website or build me an app that does XYZ or build whatever, I think Copilot will be fully capable of doing that in the next 5 to 10 years. But I just want to emphasize that still doesn't replace the need for the engineer. That just changes the engineer's job.
Right.
There's so many other things that I think Copilot is going to get really, really good at. So everyone knows that it's producing images and now music and now videos. I just can't wait until Copilot is in like the meta world.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Think about when Copilot is in the virtual reality world and how, like, from a gaming perspective and from like virtual universes and how people interact in virtual universes. What if Copilot were in those types of environments? What do you think the possibilities are?
The only answer is endless.
Exactly.
It's endless. The only
exactly.
Answer. Yeah. Okay.
So wait, there's so many and these are things that no one even thinks about or talks about yet. I think what Apple did with their Apple Vision Pro was amazing, but it was too early. If they had come out with that product when Copilot was able to integrate with that product, people would have been buying that thing like it was candy in the store.
I mean, but the future is always tomorrow.
The future is always tomorrow.
The future is always tomorrow. I do want to say, though, that a lot of other concerns that people have, specifically with AI, specifically with automation, with the cloud, all these things, the number one would have to be, from my perspective, security. People are always concerned about that. We're giving our data here. What are they doing with our data, et cetera, et cetera. From your experience, especially with Microsoft, how do you feel as if we're dealing with the security portion as we head into these new technologies?
So that's why Microsoft has the 6 principles of responsible AI. So there's fairness, privacy and security, transparency, accountability, inclusiveness, and security. When it comes to security as one of our 6 principles of responsible AI, the number one thing is that we have to make sure that everyone's data is safe. And when I say no other company works harder than Microsoft to make sure that our data, our users and our customer data stays safe, no one works harder than we do. Even with recent cyber attacks and things that have come up, they've only worked us 3 times as hard since those attacks to continue to lock down our infrastructure. From an infrastructure standpoint, that's one thing. But from a user standpoint, okay, if I'm giving you my data, what are you doing with it, right? Copilot, I'm going to go back a little bit. So A GPT, for people who don't know what a GPT is a generative pre-trained transformer.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that matters out of those three words is pre-trained. Every amount of information that a large language model or a GPT 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever has, it will always and only have that amount of information to operate. When you give it your information, it's using your information as context to help it answer your question, but it's not learning from that because it's already been trained.
Okay.
So when you say it's pre-trained, everything that it knows, it's already been trained. The only thing it does is take additional information to help it answer your question. So whenever we're releasing a new GPT, that just means we figured out how to give it better data so that it's better trained. But we didn't give it your data. We gave it publicly available data, curated data that we had, at our disposal, et cetera. We use that data, but your data stays safe because we don't keep that data. That's why when you have a conversation with Copilot, once you close that session, that conversation is gone. Now, can we save the prompt? Yeah, we can save the prompt and let you reuse it later. But the contents of that conversation, that's gone. We don't need it anymore.
I think a lot of people actually don't know that. I think
it's something that I explain all the time, even inside the company. I promise you, I can ask a room full of 200 people, do you know what GPT means? And maybe five people will raise their hand. Maybe. Okay. People don't fully understand what GPTs are, what large language models are, how do they actually work. And when you understand how they work, from a technical perspective, you're a lot less scared of them because you realize that it really can't do anything unless you tell it to.
Right.
It only has the data that we give it. That's why they had the 3 and the 3.5 and the 4, because they were just giving it better data.
The world of automation and AI is just so changing so fast. It has so many moving parts like you talked about before. And I think a lot of people, have gaps where they don't understand where to get that knowledge. Mm-hmm. They don't know where they can get resources that can help them, things that can help them expand, grow, learn new, et cetera, et cetera. So I have two-parter. Young, out of college, just came from the HBCU, and I'm trying to find out more information on automation, on, AI, Copilot, or whatever the case may be. Where should we go?
Straight to MS Learn. If you're not on learn.microsoft.com, you are missing out. Okay. The amount of free content that we have on MS Learn is mind-blowing. Before you even get into the certifications, we put so much out there for free. It's not even funny. You can go out there and learn about all of the different techniques, the technologies that we're building, the products that we're building, the amount of documentation that we have out there. It's such an amazing place to start. And when I took my first job, I kid you not, I knew not one single line of C#. I didn't know a single line of C#. We were taught Java in school. And when I took my first job, I genuinely didn't know what I was getting myself into. I lived in documentation. And for anyone who's trying to figure out, well, how do I learn more? Just keep reading. Pluralsight is great. Pluralsight has a ton of really curated, tracks of courses for any specific area that you really want to know more about. If you feel like you're not strong in a certain area like algorithms, or you're not really strong in understanding architecture or whatever the case may be, definitely go for those curated course tracks that can really take you through each one of those areas step by step. I know there's a ton of great videos out here on DevRadio. I definitely encourage people to go out and continue watching videos and listening to these conversations, because people are giving you the real tips and tricks, the down low of what's going on, inside the company and inside the industry. But there's so much to learn out there. We're still learning. As engineers, we're still learning every day. And that's our philosophy, right? Is to never stop learning at Microsoft. You have to have a mindset of learning and a mindset of growth in order to be successful. When I started at Microsoft, they put me on a project that was Python and Java, and I hadn't touched Java in years, and I wanted to cry. But you get it done.
You get it done.
You get it done.
I like that. Well, you answered my second question, so I appreciate you and your time. Thank you for the insight, because there was a lot. There was
You're
a lot.
welcome.
Yeah,
I love having these conversations.
Yeah, anytime.
Awesome.